Good morning.
Good morning, Gloria. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, audience. Good morning, UK. Good morning around the world. We are simultaneously, that's a hard word to say on a Sunday morning, I'm going live on YouTube as well. So do catch us there. Please share and like our links. And today, as you can see, everybody, once again, my co-host is the lovely Karen Shearer. Chris is otherwise engaged. So how's your week been?
Matt, it's been okay, actually. It's been a little bit wet and windy here in Wigan, but
we are in the UK. Good morning, everybody coming online. Good morning from Open Minds. Now, today it's very exciting. The guest we have today, an amazing lady. I'm going to read from my famous autocue because I do not want to minimize the research and the work this wonderful human being has done. And so here we go. So bear with me. Maria Wheatley. For nearly 30 years, author and researcher Maria Wheatley has researched megalithic sites across the world. Maria is a second generation of dowsers and geomancers, who is the UK's leading authority on the big words, the geodetic earth energies, key lines, ley lines, and grid lines. My God, that's a mouthful for me. Maria was the first independent researcher to track down and photograph the elongated, long-skulled people of Stone Henge. Yes, you've heard me correct, Stone Henge. Her exciting new finds regarding the long-lost people associated with the ancient monuments has been published, I hope, if I've got this correct, in her book, which will be the first. No one has ever researched and covered the elongated civilizations of Stonehenge. She has lectured worldwide. She has shown the British dowsers and other dowsing societies how to locate, find geodetic earth energies. I'm learning new words. Maria has worked alongside experts such as Rodney Hale to prove the existence of earth energies and how the stones can transmit electromagnetic energies. I mean, I could have gone on with the achievement. My gosh, it's not my terminology, and I could have gone on with the achievements forever. However, you are going to see and hear and witness Maria's research now on Open Minds. So, Karen, please, can you get Maria out of the naughty room? And here we go. Good morning. Maria, I had new words I don't use in my vocabulary. Did I say the words correctly?
Yeah, geodetic earth energies. So that was pronounced correctly. So thanks for that.
It's the fact that I should have really done my research a bit more and practice and pronouncing. So,
Oh, good.
firstly, welcome to the show. And we're just going to kick off because there's a lot of information that needs to be put out today. So, Maria, before we go into the fascinating journey of Stonehenge and the military presence, the long barrows and their purpose, and finally to Cambridge University, to the High Queen skull and the connection to past civilizations and the Egyptians, Akhenaten. Before that, please tell us about dowsing and the key figure in your life who introduced you to this field, your father.
The dowsing is an ancient art that's been recorded since literally the cave paintings. There was a picture of someone dowsing there. We have known for many centuries that dowsing can be used to find water, underground water, what's called groundwater. Also, Cleopatra of Egypt fame, she employed dowsing to find gold. And it's used to find an invisible target, such as a ley line or earth energies like that. And I'm an expert in earth energies and lays, although I have done water divining in the past. I did some water divining last year, just when we came out of lockdown. But normally I focus on earth energies and trying to discover things that have been forgotten by the establishment.
Yes. Very politically correct there. I like that. I like that. Maria, now tell us about your father and you as a child. Give us a backdrop of that and how you became introduced to this.
Well, I used to go around ancient sites as a child because my family moved to Wiltshire, which is not far from Stonehenge, and Avebury Henge, which is the largest stone circle in the world. And quite close to Avebury, you have the largest man-made mound in the world. And so even as a teenager with friends, we used to, hang out at these places. And my father was into dowsing. And I got into dowsing and other subjects besides, like past life therapy and regression and astrology and tarot. So I was fascinated by everything to do with the mystical realms and metaphysics. And that was kind of my grounding. But my passion and my love is with the ancient sites, whether it's from ancient Egypt pyramids to Stonehenge. That's where my heart lies, and that's where my connection is, and that's why I feel that I got connected to the discovery of the elongated skulls around these Stonehenge environs, because I did discover them using dowsing. Because I used what's called the 2-point fix. And instead of normally dowsing, you say to your dowsing rod or pendulum, for example, it's called information dowsing, you ask it a question. Is it this? Is it that? You literally ask a question and you get a yes or no answer. But I decided to do it the other way around and ask the landscape of Stonehenge to show me something, instead of me asking to be shown something. And I use what's called the 2-point fix, which is going that way to get a pendulum response and that way. And you literally draw 2 lines. X does mark the spot in this instance. And that's how I discovered the longest long barrow in Northwest Europe, lying in the Stonehenge environs, and I decided to investigate that barrow. That's how the story began, with the rediscovery and the discovery of the elongated skulled people of Stonehenge. So dowsing was a key in this story. It really, really is. And it just goes to show that the landscape, Gaia's energies, the earth energies, the lays, can communicate to us in many different ways.
Yes. So I have heard you in documentaries before and some lectures as well. I would like to bring to the audience attention how you located the High Queen. Was it that you lay down with this new way? You were using the consciousness to connect to Mother Earth. Where you lay down on Mother Earth, on this area, and when that happened and you got the information, what was the first thing that set you on your research journey to eventually you found the High Queen in Cambridge University?
Well, firstly, her barrow, her long barrow, which is nearly 400 feet long, it's huge. It snakes across the landscape on a high ridge. It's very, very prominent, but it's on military land. And sometimes when the military have the red flag flying, literally it's a red flag, you can't have access to that part of the plane. So it was just by, happy chance, as it were, or guidance by the ancestors, one could muse, that I was allowed on at that particular day. And it was a cold February day, okay, when I went there.
Wow.
And it's an exposed plain, it really is. And I decided to lie down on her barrow and just to kind of communicate with the energies there. And at that time, I didn't know it was a female. And normally as well, long barrows are built to house a lot of burial deposits, more than one person normally. It could be up to 30, 40, 50. That's what I was expecting in the longest barrow surrounding Stonehenge. I thought there's going to be hundreds of people in here. But when I researched it after lying upon it and really kind of getting the energy of place, the spirit of place, I then discovered it was built for one person. So I thought I've got to try and research who this person was. And if you look at Stonehenge books, even when it comes to polishing the stones and pounding them to get them smooth, it's men all of the time portrayed working the stones. Okay. So when I discovered it was a woman, I thought, wow, she had to be an important person. It was only the elite, really, that was buried in the long barrows, because other people were buried in what's called flat graves, which is what we go into if you get a burial.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really exciting to find a long lost woman in the landscape. That was the first part of the journey. I thought, wow, there's this woman. She's probably high status. That's why I call her the High Queen. She could have been a high priestess. She could have been both. And after some research from Wiltshire Archaeological Magazine, which is like an archaeological reports, listing of finds and things, I thought, well, they're all mentioning the slight kind of difference in skull, but not really saying elongated, almost kind of when we're not going to say anything like that. Maybe longer skulls, less round, that sort of thing, which is quite ambiguous, really, because you want words to describe it. So when I went to Cambridge University, clearly she had an elongated skull going that way, and very narrow in the face.
Wow.
Very small, very petite features. So if you put her features against your face or Karen's face or my face, it literally would be looking tiny, looking very fairy-like. And they were quite short as well, like Nefertiti, only about 4'9". So these people were short and kind of unusual looking. You do a double take now if you saw one of these people walking down the high street, for example. So it was a wonder to discover that this person looked unusual, was unusual, had an elongated skull in the largest long barrow in Northwest Europe. And then I thought, well, what about the others? What about the other people in the long barrows? What's going on in the Stonehenge environments and elsewhere in the Neolithic? Which is from the Neolithic period, is from about 5000 BC. The Copper Age, Chalcolithic period of 2480 BC. So it is that window that we're looking at, and the people of ancient Britain had elongated skulls predominantly. Okay. And like I say, they were short in stature, and they built particular monuments such as long barrows, causewayed enclosures, their ceremonial centres on hilltops that predate the stone circle building phase by about 1,000 years, and massive monuments called cursors monuments, which the largest cursors monument which I can describe what it looks like in a moment, is 7 miles long. A Cursors monument, if you imagine, we're in chalk bedrock here, like the Yorkshire Wolds is chalk bedrock, okay? And you imagine a rectangular enclosure with about 6 foot to 10 foot walls, and creating a rectangle of chalk block, like a chalk wall, creating this rectangular enclosure. That once stood in front of Stonehenge. It's ploughed out now, but it was nearly 2 miles long in front of Stonehenge. This unusual chalk structure called a Cursors monument by William Stukeley, who was an antiquarian. So what was going on with that type of monument that they built? And you get cursor after cursor. One of the large cursor was, and get this, if you fly into Heathrow Airport, there was a massive cursors at Heathrow. And in Yorkshire, there's quite a few cursors monuments around the Gypsy race and the Rudstone monolith. There's Neolithic monuments there. So I think the Neolithic were building quite elongated looking monuments. Whether they were long barrows, they look kind of elongated, Cursors monuments elongated. And it was really interesting to note that the only type of skull you had in the long barrow was a long skull. So like long barrows have long skulls. Whereas the much later population from Europe, called by archaeologists the beaker culture or the bell beaker culture, they came across from Europe, and they had much rounder skulls like ours. They were taller, at least a foot or so taller than the elongated people. And they built round barrows rather than the long barrows. So in the Stonehenge environs, you have long skulls in long barrows and round skulls in round barrows. And you don't get the mix in Stonehenge. You get the mix elsewhere. So we could go now to Derbyshire, Staffordshire. And you could get a round skull next to a long skull, but not at Stonehenge, because I think that was their spiritual capital. The long-skulled people, I have evidence now for, built Stonehenge. It was then used by the beaker culture, who tinkered with the design. They changed the design quite a few times at Stonehenge. So it's clear with DNA evidence now coming out of British Archaeology magazine, you can check it out even in British Archaeology magazine online, that the DNA studies show that prior to the Chalcolithic period of 2480 BC, there was no European blood. There was a different race almost.
That I have to pull that back slightly, and with the story you narrated is like, hello, us UK people, we don't come from where we thought we come from. One, we have the elongated heads. That needs to go into a bit deeper. But secondly, you have the round heads. What happened to the elongated civilization? Did the Roundheads come in from Europe and annihilate them, or did you find anything? How? Because you're saying there's a separation, so it's normally in historical history, one civilization comes in and normally takes over and kills off the former. And going parallel with that, these places that they built, I mean, this is technology. This is architecture, this is engineering, this is science. We have all the scientific knowing now, but back in the day, let's just say, it wasn't available. I know this is a 3-part question. Were these areas used as maybe initiation or for vibration or anything? Do you have any info on that as well? Like the pyramids in Egypt?
They were master astronomers and master geomancers, the long-headed race, because they chose Stonehenge because it's an astronomical wonder. It forms a right angle to the midsummer sunrise to where the moon's most northerly moonset is. So it's an astronomical line. That's where Stonehenge was placed. Then it was placed above a big aquifer, which releases negative ions, which are very good for us to breathe in and to be around. So in my opinion, I think Stonehenge, as some archaeologists think, such as Tim DeVille and the late Jeffrey Wainwright, that it was a healing center, and people went to Stonehenge to be healed. Okay, because there's some very unusual earth energies at Stonehenge which aren't found anywhere else apart from that astronomical line. It really is a place where the stones have particular working on. Now, most people, when they think about Stonehenge, we all have it in our mind. We see those rectangular blocks with the lintels on top, don't we? That's how we see Stonehenge. But if you go on the inside to one of the trilithons, that's with 2 stones and 1 on top, there's 5 of which form a horseshoe at the center of Stonehenge. Some of them are carved in unusual ways. And the professor, Richard Atkinson, said it was called broad tooling, and it was a bit of a kind of, they were going to finish it off later, but they never bothered, and it looks a bit rough, and that's broad tooling. That's what he described it as. But everything at Stonehenge had meaning. Nothing was by chance. So on this particular stone, it's trilithon number 60 for those that like to look things up on the internet. Look it up for yourself. It has 2 areas that form spines going down. And I call these spine stones. You get them at Avebury Henge, for example, Beltany Stone Circle in Ireland, and in some stone circles in Wales. So you have these spine areas, and if you put your spine against that spine area on that stone, people feel tingling. They feel, some people say their chakra system has been stimulated, or they feel healing on some kind of way. And the broad tooling goes to human height. So if it was broad tooling going all the way up the stone, right to the top and down the other side, I would say yes, they were probably going to finish that off at a later date, but not in this instance. These are stones that were guided to be worked with and interacted with, and today it's recumbrant. That means it's fallen over. It's lying flat on the ground at Stonehenge. But here's the wonder. If you go to Stonehenge, you're not allowed to touch the stones. We can't be activated now, can we, as a people and consciousness? You're not allowed to touch the stones. But if you put your hands above them, you feel heat coming off the stone. I even got a security guard to take off his glove one cold September morning. Yes, I get cold a lot at Stonehenge. In summer and in winter. And we were warming our hands up, as it were, and you can feel the heat come in. I think that's megalithic energy to stimulate our systems and our immune system and our chakra system.
Can you infer that back to Egypt? Where are we talking the same civilization with these energies? It out there.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You're asking some really good questions, and it's great to answer and to interact. Well, yes, I think there was a global civilization that had very similar spiritual beliefs, unlike today. With monolithism, with our own religions, they're all broken up into different areas. But I think in the distant past, there must have been some similarities, because whether you're at the pyramids, whether you're at Malta's Hypogeum, Stonehenge, and Peru, places in Mexico, they all look for the similar earth energies. And they place their monuments upon them. So that shows that there must have been some exchange in knowledge, that the people were working and locating all of these places worldwide and forming like a grid system, using long lost technology probably that we're just catching up with, you know. And that's what I think they were doing. And in the case of the Egyptian pyramids and the King's Chamber, there's no difference to the energies there than if you were understood by the altar stone at Stonehenge. They are both on similar types of earth energy, and the so-called sarcophagus in the King's Chamber is clearly, again, more for healing, initiation, maybe astral traveling, time traveling, or something like that. I think there's far more going on to these ancient sites than we are spoon-fed from the moment that we can write.
And also, I mean, Karen, you must, if you have a question, just shut me up. I'm just so into this. I've been waiting for this one, especially with the connection to Egypt. Obviously, I personally, the sarcophagus in Egypt, it's just a knowing. They were for initiation, they were for healing, and the science behind it. And then when I started to research your work and I heard you, I was going, the inference was there, it was the same. And then the same principle with the elongated skulls, these beings, whether they were hybrid, Homo sapiens, sapien, it's irrelevant now, but it was the same backdrop story to Akhenaten and Nefertiti, what happened to them, how they were ousted out. And that brings me to the next part. This high priestess, this high queen, and the elongated civilization, how did they die out? What happened to them?
Yeah, that's a really good question that needs to be addressed. It's thought by a top psychologist that she's Dr. Selena Smith, and she thinks that, for example, they could have been intermarrying. She doesn't call them elongated. They say the Neolithic and the Bronze Age people. They don't use the terminology we are using, like the round skulled and the long skull. But there was probably an intermarriage, because you did have suddenly the middle-sized skull, so to speak. So there was intermarriage. There was also probably a bit like the Spaniards going to South America, who brought the common cold, maybe diseases, for example. That could have happened, because Britain has been an island since 6000 BC. So maybe some kind of disease could have killed some off. And then in the Stonehenge environs, especially so, rather than elsewhere in the country, there is signs of being murdered. For example, some nails from Bolbarrow, it's called Bolbarrow, it's on the Salisbury Plain. You'll never get to go there because that's right in their firing range. You're just not going to go there.
Coincidentally.
It's used blue stones and sarsen stones there. It's a megalithic longbrow, which is quite unusual. The rest are earthen. And there was clear evidence then, when it was excavated, that someone had been beheaded by a sword. And there was another beheading in a place called Rodmarton, which is in Gloucestershire, and there was signs of someone being beheaded there. And we know that the Bell Beaker culture, brought with them the technology of metalworking. So the Neolithic were kind of probably more peaceful. They were more communal. They didn't divide the land up. The land was ours. Whereas the Beaker culture said, oh, that's mine. I'm going to build a big Daikin fence. This is mine. So there was a really different cultural identity between these two people. So I think some of them were definitely murdered. The High Queen, she showed signs of being murdered. Others besides, but I'm still doing some research, so the story may change and weave with more information that comes in at a future date. But I'll keep you posted if that is the case. So I really do feel that in the Stonehenge area, that was their megalithic spiritual capital. Why? We know that it's the most barrows, it was the most used. It was the latest monument in the megalithic area to be abandoned. So Stonehenge meant something to these people. And I know if it was my monument, even today with that tunnel, I would fight for Stonehenge. So I think our ancestors would have.
It does. I mean, this opens the door to multiple questions. Could you also bring another inference that Stonehenge, I mean, the military presence around sacred sites around the world, or secret places around the world. You could even add in Area 51. You could even the pyramids now. Archaeology, but independent archaeology has been shut down. It's now you cannot go in there because in the past, and with yourself, awareness has been brought of our ancestors, because it seems to me our ancestors were highly more advanced spiritually, communally, collectively, and another civilization or whatever come in and annihilated that. And then everywhere that occurred, these power bases, sacred sites, the military have surrounded. Why are the military there surrounding Stonehenge? And why? How old is Stonehenge, Maria? How old?
Phase 1 dates back to 3100 BC, so about 5,000 years old for Stonehenge phase 1.
So until contemporary military come in and government policy come in, don't touch. Stonehenge had been touched, embraced, loved without any eco damage at all. Could you now also tell me, so many questions, why are they saying we can't touch Stonehenge? We can't touch the blue stone. Why?
That was brought in private access. You could always touch the stones up until 2010. Okay. So it was in 2010 that they said you couldn't touch the stones, because I remember it well, because I was taking quite a famous gentleman into Stonehenge and I was bigging it up so you could touch the great have a download, and then we were told no, you couldn't. So I remember that date quite distinctively. When I did a show with the UFO hunters from America, they did a show called Vortexes, or Vortices, however you want to say it. And they noticed with their research that wherever you get an ancient site and a big vortex, you get military presence, because I'm sure that it's not a coincidence that there's up to 16 military establishments, surrounding and encircling Stonehenge. And even if you look to one of the lunar lays that are at Stonehenge, heading towards an ancient site called Figsbury Rings, Figsbury Rings is right by Porton-Down Nuclear Biological Centre.
Nuclear sites as well.
It's on the same lay. So, make of that what you will. Is that coincidence? Is that deliberately sighting on that line, for instance? So I think that the military establishment has been there for, quite some years now. And even where I live in Marlborough, which is about 17 miles south of Stonehenge, when they are using live ammo on the Salisbury Plain, I can hear it in my house booming. Wow. Yeah, so it's a lot of military presence there, and the barrows are on the Salisbury Plain. And up until recently, up until about the 80s, I think it was, or the late 70s, somewhere around that time, they used to drive their tanks over the long barrows.
My God.
But it goes to show how well that the ancients designed them, because they didn't cave in.
No, exactly.
It goes to show that their engineering skills were, absolutely incredible. So I really do think that they built things well, but the military presence is there. Like I say, you can't always have access to it. Now, when I discovered her I think it was 2000, it's about 5 years ago. Okay, just for that's when I discovered them. You could go onto her barrow. I led on it on that cold February morning. And I've taken small groups there and some large groups beside to honour the ancient ancestors. And up until relatively recently, last year, they've now put a no entry sign on that barrow. So they've got a big no entry. Then furthermore, what they have done is they've encased the whole barrow in like this chicken wire mesh, which some people say acts like a Faraday cage, blocking the energy. Again, make that what you will.
I think Karen was thinking that when we heard about Karen as well. Sorry to interrupt, but when you're talking about firing and the military, obviously is trying to disturb the energy, Karen, isn't it? You were.
Yeah.
I saw you smiling there, and I kept thinking, oh, that's why. So I'm having which only really proves the point of that Stonehenge, and the area around Stonehenge is really a vortex, and the military are there for one purpose only. We don't access it, and by using military operations and live firearms, and we've got the nuclear, one could, in brackets, perceive it as a low negative polarity to the light. Yeah. So it's just stopping that. Wow. I mean, my mind's now blowing. I'm now. Karen, would you like to ask? I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. To be honest, I'm so fascinated, and I'm just listening intently to everything that Maria's saying, because it fascinates me so much.
It's mind blowing.
I find it really interesting how our actual history is so distorted from what is now appearing to be the truth, and how much that has been manipulated in such a way as to control what people think, and and limit what they can access. I just find it absolutely fascinating. So I don't actually have any questions at the moment, because I'm just waiting for the next thing that Maria's going to say.
Well, thank you, but feel free to ask anything.
Go on, Karen.
I'm interested to see what your perception is of. Do you feel that there is any link to like extraterrestrial, or rather than them being perhaps murdered or just wiped out, did they leave? Did they go home? Or is that something that you think about, or is that just not possible?
It has been mooted by many different researchers, especially those that are into the ancient aliens. That's been proved very popular. So there is that side to it. But there was a very large DNA study done by LA. I think you pronounce his second name Mazzelli or something like that. LA. He came over and he interviewed me about the elongated skulls. And from his DNA of 16 of the Paracas, they're the really big cone heads from Paracas, Peru, which Brian Forrester has done a lot of research on. He's the leading expert, one would say. The DNA came out that they were from more towards the Russian steppes. That's the DNA evidence for that. What it is about the people of Stonehenge, it's difficult to say, because you would need a very big study. But the study that has shown that their DNA was from these lands, as it were. So they are our ancestors, and we may, even some of us, have mixed blood. We don't know. We could have, going back to lineage, could have been, part long skull. Their skin was darker as well. So if you look at reconstruction from what's called Cheddar Man, he's a Mesolithic man. He had quite dark skin, very dark Mediterranean skin, but with bright blue eyes. So if we say that's what it was like in Somerset at Cheddar Gorge, for example, in the Mesolithic period that predates the Neolithic, then perhaps they were quite stunning looking, with dark skin, dark hair, these piercing blue eyes there. They could have looked like that. I mean, we really do need to rethink and then revisit the past. That's what needs to be done, and realize that these people were responsible for moving the heaviest stones. Because when you look to the Neolithic settings at Avebury Henge, for example, the heaviest stones were moved and set by the Neolithic long skull people, who were the lightest and shortest of stature. So they could move stone. And one stone at Avebury is up to 100 tons.
Exactly. I mean, this also, I mean, we all have our own truth and perception, but I think if you've researched enough, and years ago I started with Egyptian and the pyramids, and I personally do not believe Homo sapiens sapien did that. I don't. I think maybe they worked with another civilization who had the higher technology of maybe vibration, sound, because, and it was the pyramids, the alignments, every single thing. I don't need to go into it. Everyone would know about now. It's too perfect. So I'm now transferring this over to Stonehenge. And I did, when I spoke to you on the phone to invite you to the show, I'd watched another documentary about where the blue stones had come from another area. However, if you're saying, according to our history, that these were ignorant cave people, they didn't know anything, blah, 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 you still got asked the same question you'd ask about the pyramids. How did they move these megalithic stones from one to another in perfect symmetry, in perfect alignment, astronomically, geographically? Hello? I would then, and then my truth then would be reinforced by the military presence around that.
Yes, well, the blue stones, it's now known by research done and excavations done by Professor Mike Parker Pearson that some of the blue stones originally came from a stone circle called Wine in Pembrokeshire. And then they found the two other quarries, Rossyfelin for the kind of lighter blue-coloured stone, and Congo dog for what's called the spotted dolerite. So we know these features came and they moved tonnage after tonnage after tonnage. That's what they did. And for the trilithon settings, they weigh up to 100 tons each and came from what's now believed to be a place called Westwoods near where I live in Marlborough. But the magic and the mystery about these stones, we say stones, but here's the thing about the Stonehenge Sarsen stones. They never saw the light of day until they were raised. The ancients looked for the ones that were buried below the ground, those large stones, so that when they dressed them to make them lozenge shape, they were easier to shape, if you see what I mean, because if they're exposed to the weather, sarsen stone, it creates a thin crust, and they would have been, slightly pink in color. They would have been glistening like a faceted diamond. It would have been a beautiful, beautiful sight set against these dark blue stones. It would have been like a yin yang colouring entering Stonehenge. It would have been breathtakingly beautiful.
I mean, that's how I was envisioning it. And also, as we know, with crystals, stone stores energy. It's eons, everything is in there. And they seem to know our ancient civilization, according to our history government, that were really, they knew to work these in such a way with the vibrations around Stonehenge to exactly like you said, when you took your security guard, put your hand on there, that's heat. They knew all this. So hence I will come back to and what Karen raised about other dimensional beings, aliens. I mean, Egyptology and the sciences there, which does open another door. What do you think would happen to us, British people in the UK, if the military were just taken away, go over there, go somewhere, and we could access? So what I'm leading this question into is, can you tell us what you believe from your perception, what Stonehenge was about for our ancient ancestors, that if we could access today, we could experience? Would it be an initiation? Would it be a connection to the greater universe or other beings? What do you think from your perspective?
I think stone circles generally, such as Stonehenge and Avebury, are multifaceted. They're not one thing. So it's a bit like a church. You have a christening, you have a wedding, you could go there in times of war, you could go there in times of despair. I think Stonehenge had different times of the year in the eightfold year, such as the solstices, the equinoxes, Beltane, Lammas, etc. And that eightfold year, it seems to bring in different energies, the sun being in a different part of the ecliptic, if you see what I mean. So I think at different times of the year, at different stages, Stonehenge has more healing energies at some time. Then it has some energies where people feel that they've experienced what they call downloads, getting information through the system, so to speak. And so I think it's down to the time of the moon at Stonehenge. I think that influences its energy, because the heel stone, we all think of the heel stone. We all think we know Stonehenge so well because we all know that people pile there to see the sun rise above the heel stone at the summer solstice dawn. But any archaeoastronomer of worth and merit would tell you that that's, yes, it does, but it's slightly off. It was never 100% accurate. But the alignment that is 100% accurate is called the mid-swing position of the moon's metonic cycle. And just by saying that, you know it's going to be complicated.
Yes, I'm ready.
And it is. But get this, this was discovered by Gerald Hawkins back in the 1960s, when he discovered that Stonehenge phase 1, with 56 blue stones going around a large stone circle, long before the trilithon and the lintled circle was built. That's Stonehenge phase 1, 56 blue stones. Then at the time of the winter solstice, in its metonic cycle, it could predict eclipses. The Stonehenge phase 1, and imagine being at Stonehenge at the winter solstice when the full moon rises perfectly above the heel stone every 9 years. And then when there's an eclipse, it's blood red above the heel stone. That's its long lost alignments. That's what I mean. We all think we know. We all think we know Stonehenge, but actually there's so much unknown information about Stonehenge, which I'm currently writing up in lockdown and elsewhere. The true history of Stonehenge and its lost information, because I think we all think it's the most well-known monument is because we've been spoon-fed that. Yeah, yes. And my book will expose all the facts about Stonehenge that people are unaware of and can go there and experience it. You have to have private access, which you can apply for, online on the English Heritage website to experience these energies firsthand. It's a monument that was given to us by our ancestors to heal us, to help us, to get us into an initiation, and yet we are denied that.
Yes, exactly. Well, 2 points to that. Do you have a date when the book will be published?
Well, it's partly been edited now, and I've got a couple more chapters to write, but it will be out within, say, six or 7 months hence.
Wonderful.
And it will be a page turner, because I found out so much information, and it's literally the secret history of our past.
Brilliant. I mean, hopefully when the time's nearer to publication, we can have you back on the show and you can discuss your book. We will advertise it, and then we'll promote this book, Karen, to go in all the schools. So I do remember the Stonehenge trip. I do remember. However, we were allowed to touch, or maybe we were just naughty. We touched the stones. This is what I still don't understand. 5,000 years old, and I'm not that old, However, when I was a child, we went to Stonehenge, Cheddar Gorge, all of that, but I touched the stones, mighty powerful stones. What, again, the reason why we can't touch it is now, why?
Because they say it's because there's a lot of lichen, like a plant life, that grows on it. And where we have chemical fingers through soap and sanitizer, I suppose now you'd say it could kill that off. But our ancient ancestors had those pristine. There was no lichen growing on the stones there. I could give you a photograph from the 1970s where they didn't have that on, and where it's kind of growing all green now. It's not attractive. It wasn't the original design. No. In my opinion, it's just to stop us interacting with the energies of Stonehenge.
And I think now's the time that, Karen, we need to start this. It's got to change. This is our country. It's our heritage. And, you know, as I said, with the research you're doing, the book, get it into schools, get it out to children and to our audience. When Maria's book comes out, get the book. Please share it with your children of all ages, because I think the time is now that we need to find our truth of who we are, where we come from, our history. I mean, obviously, I've got to mention the recent events that have come out, the Pentagon. Yes, UFOs exist, aliens exist. So I've already asked that question. What else have they lied to us about? If they can lie about something, because reality shifting, as yes, extra, you know, these craft UFO are here, even though we know it. What else? And to me, the sacred sites, especially Stonehenge, and this is why it's very important that for you, and we're truly grateful you come on the show, is to investigate Stonehenge and to find out what it's about, why we're denied access, and again, how come all of a sudden we can't touch it? When for me, it's been there, 5,000 years or whenever, where people have been going in the ceremonies you've mentioned, winter solstice, summer solstice, touching. There's never any harm to the stone, ever any harm to the stone. So I'm looking forward to that book. Karen, is there anything that you would like to jump in before we round up? I mean, I'm blown away.
It's more of a sort of a structural question, really. Would I be right in thinking that I think people's perception of like Stonehenge and other henges are about the monuments that are on it, but isn't the henge actually the sort of circle around it? Is that what defines the henge?
Yes, you're right. What a henge is, it's a ditch and a bank, and normally the ditch is on the inside and the bank is on the outside. But at Stonehenge, the bank is on the inside, the ditch is on the outside, and there was another small bank there. So it was an incredible, different design. Everything about Stonehenge was different than any other henge monument in the British Isles. But yes, you're correct. That's what defines a henge.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got another little question as well, and it just goes back to the Queen that you discovered and her role in this. Do you feel that connection to her? Do you feel that she has helped you on that sort of level, on the psychic level, if you like, to bring all this to the forefront? And do you feel that personal connection to her?
That's a wonderful question, and one close to my heart that I will enjoy answering. Yes, I do. I feel incredibly close. It was almost like she was telling me woman to woman her story, you know, and it was incredibly powerful, incredibly moving moment when I was very close to her. In the university. And what I did do when I was allowed a little bit of time alone, just by happy chance, because she had to go off and answer a phone call, the curator that was with me, I didn't touch her skull, but I went over it like this, over the throat chakra area, over the third eye. And when I put my hand there, it was almost like there were two energy points, like two crown chakras associated with the long skull. And since then, Karen, I feel her calling me from time to time, and so I go there, and then I get that kind of inspirational moment where the research just goes on a roll, because I think the elongated people want their story to be told. They truly, I think, long lost legacy, and they want it to be told. And people like yourselves, which are receptive, open-minded, as your show is called, Open Minds, that allow this information to be out there, because the archaeologists still don't address it. They might say in passing something about them, but not in sort of giving them the credit for what they have deserved. And also just about Stonehenge, when Aubrey Hole 7 was reinvestigated just recently for all bone deposits that were placed in the very early Neolithic period of Stonehenge, that it was found to be the majority of women. So Stonehenge is, as much as people think it's a masculine monument, it isn't. It was the High Queen was associated with it. Women were associated with it. So I think it was about healing. It was about intuition. It was about prophecy. And again, every picture in a school, you're talking about school kids, educate the kids. It's always men, normally dressed in terrible animal skins. Well, they had fabric then. I mean, the whole thing is just ludicrous.
No. I mean, I think that with the paradigm shift at the moment, I think by the Pentagon, and obviously now it's on Newsnight and UK TV, main media. Yes, UFOs do exist. That in itself, let it go by itself, okay? Because we know that and we've all experienced it. However, that has opened the horse's gate for us, especially the people of the UK, to say, okay, what else is there? And for me, Stonehenge is one of them, because we've all did the school trips to Stonehenge. We were all conditioned to believe it was whatever. So that's opened the gate that we now can freely go out and say, well, if you've lied about that, what about this? So I think this type of conversation is needed, Maria, and not just one off here or there. I think this type of conversation is needed more and more. Why has this happened? And I truly believe the way things are going, as governments of the world are being forced by whatever means to drip feed and let the people know, okay. I think for our gem, which is Stonehenge, I think we can do as much to get disclosure of what is Stonehenge, why are military there, because there will be another inference because of our nuclear base, is you will have UFOs. It's a hot spot. That area is a hot spot for UFOs as well. And it's, from all researchers around the world, if there's an arsenal of nuclear weapons or a sacred site, energetically wise, you'll have the UFOs. So I think we have to now take that out and look at it as, instead of having separate, genres of topics to research, I think everyone should come together now collectively and start looking at it in a holistic way. And I'm up for one saying, get this.
Back to what Maria was saying before about how all these ancient civilizations, even though they were hundreds of thousands of miles apart, were all actually of the same.
They were in sync.
They were in sync with it, not only in the structures that they built, but in the spirituality as well.
Everything. So, they were communal. They weren't separate. They worked as a collective, and they had technology that we haven't got, maybe just getting today. And we've only advanced our technology in the past 100 years. But to move them stones, to do what they did, so
but I think that we're talking about man-made technology that's furthering us at the moment, but they're not looking at that earth-made technology.
Mother Gaia,
that the energy and how that was built. They're thinking more on a physical. We think physically, how have they moved that, and we have to use our own concept of that. They must have physically lifted it physically themselves, but actually, was it more about the sound vibration, the natural earth energy, and perhaps we're trying to make it man-made, when actually it's more probably earth-made in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of the earth frequencies that you get can be measured alongside Rodney Hale that you mentioned in the introduction. We put some copper probes. You couldn't get away with this now. We did this about 10 years ago. We had these massive copper probes going into an earth energy current. At Avebury, we'd be slung out now. We put them down and we got a constant hertz frequency of about 25 hertz, for example. And on the control outside, we did what's called a control, and there was no frequency on that. Now, now, according to Dr. Sam, that looks into the Bosnian pyramids, then I think if they could manipulate the sound frequency of that 25 hertz to a 25 kilohertz. That's the frequency of levitation. So maybe the earth currents are going into the sites because they are healing, and they give off positive energy that people can sense even today, but also be of a practical use as well in making the stones probably lighter, and easier to put up and to manage it in effect.
I mean, obviously we're hearing this again and again. I mean, we've even got Tesla. Look what happened to poor Tesla. And the way the Earth's gone with the fossil fuels and the destruction of Gaia, these technologies, as with Egypt and around the world, even the Bosnian pyramids, Peru, everywhere, it's like someone doesn't want you to know or to touch them because it's not, let's just say, for their, I've got to be very elegant here, for their, no, I won't be elegant. It's, they make money. They make money. I'm sorry. That's it. It is. I mean, go back in the day, it was free energy. It was free energy. We know we have free energy. We know Stone Henge, as you've just said, and other structures has produced and can produce free energy. Tesla, there you go. I say no more. And this has been shut down from the people. So does that make sense to you, Maria? Why? It's just a thought. Why? Could be wrong. Why these areas are so restricted? Another one, not just our ancestry, like, yes, UFOs are real, there are other civilizations, but our ancestors, our history is basically a lie. So we need to shut that down too. Does that make sense, or have I over?
I think so, and I think Earth Energy's played a major role in the construction at Stonehenge, as well as siting it and the location of it. I mean, it's all part of the same thing. And yes, we need to get the truth about the ancient sites, about our past, because it's something that you've mentioned. Because if we educate our children, we're going to build a better future.
Yes.
So that's, for me, where it's going. If we understand earth energies, we understand Gaia, how to work with some earth energies which can help children and education and healing. If hospitals cited on certain energies, for example, we build a better future living in harmony with Gaia. And that's where my passion lies as well.
Well, we support your passion, and my gosh, I mean, I'm just still trying to compute all this, I've got cognitive dissonance at the moment because it's just too much going in. I'll have to rewatch it. Thank you so much, Maria, for today. It's just going to expand everyone's consciousness, and we're all going to research even more and support that. And when the book is out to be published, we will invite you back on the show, and we'll spread that information out. We do have you back on the Sunday, the 18th of July, where it's everything dowsing. Yay. So, everything, your favorite topic, and the show is yours, basically. I've tried it once or twice with a medium friend a few years ago, and, basic. And I go, oh my God, it works. Yeah. Because I've never experienced it. The energy you get, I was like, oh my God, because I would see someone doing it going, oh yeah, you're moving it, So a friend of mine who was a medium took me out in Buckinghamshire somewhere, and she got me and I went, yeah. I was such a skeptic. And I was like, oh, I had goosebumps down my back. I was this, I was that. And that was it. You should have seen me in the woods, my love. I went native. I went native doing this. So, but that's all I've experienced of this wonderful craft. So when you come back, I am so looking forward. And I may have to get some dowsing tools. You'll have to recommend what we need.
Please, I mean, I could teach you step by step to do some really great things in your own home on the next show. So what I would say is get a pendulum ready and an L rod if you have that, and let's get dowsing. Let's get finding things in our own homes. And I can teach you how to find a grid line, for example, going through your home or other things.
Yeah.
We're going to get interactive. We're going to get dowsing. You're going to get that same feeling like you had in the woods. We're all going to be tingling, and we're all going to be dowsing.
Oh, I look forward to that, everybody. Karen, Chris is not coming. Karen, Chris is not coming on the show that day. It's Goddess Day, okay? He can go away.
That's it. I'll put out into the universe now that he's going to have to be working that day. So
he's going to have to work that day. So everybody, you need to be on the show on the 18th of July. Everything dowsing. Oh my God, I'm now more excited. So on that wonderful note, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful, and it's been so good as well to see that correlation between the mystical side of Stone Henge, but also because you've got that archaeological and geological experience as well, and the way that it comes together. So it's not just theory. This is something that you've studied and you've researched, and it's
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Karen.
Thank you so much, Maria. Okay, Karen, can you put Maria in the naughty room, even though she's been really good?
Reluctantly, I shall put her in, Thank you so much.
Right. Oh, my God. Okay, guys, before we close the show, next week, hold on, get my voice back. Oh, my goodness me. Next week, Eric Mitchell is returning to Open Mind. Yeah, he's coming back. As he mentioned in the last show, he was in the process, he's still in the process of making a documentary that will visually share with us his UFO experiences that he spoke about it was on the 9th of May, he was on the show about his journey. So he's returning. He will talk about the documentary, what's in the documentary, and who knows, any other updates coming out of America. So we're coming live from America. That's Eric Mitchell next week. Karen, thank you for co-hosting. Remember, you're in when Maria comes back. We're not having Chris. We're all dowsing that day. He can go away. Thank you for everybody joining us today. Please share and like our link. As I said, we're live simultaneously on YouTube. I really would like your feedback on today's show. You know, what have you heard about Stonehenge? Please, later on, put it on our page. Give us your feedback. UK peoples from Stonehenge, that will be interesting. And Karen, I've got to say thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
It's just been excellent, and thank you. It's great. Just keep sending Chris to work, okay? Every Sunday, send Chris to work. Okay, guys, thank you so much. And we will see you next week. So it's good night from Karen and good afternoon from Karen and
good afternoon, good night, good evening from Gloria.
It's not the same when it's not Chris.
Chris does it a lot better than I do.
Yeah, me and Chris have this banter and I totally forgot. But anyway, good night, everybody. Good afternoon, whatever part of the world you're in. And we'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.